fellow risers, and welcome to Rising with Christian. Today we have a brother and a friend by the name of Rashid Hughes. I'm so glad you're here today.
I'm really glad to be here.
Wow, so we have gone back. We've known each other for at least 6, 7 years. And we've just kind of followed one another on this journey. So a little bit about Rashid. He's everything mindfulness, okay? So I'm just going to read what he does. He's a certified mindfulness teacher, certified yoga instructor, a certified trauma tapper. Did I say that correct? And restorative justice specialist. And the list goes on and on. I mean, he has hours and hundreds of hours and all that he does. And so we're just going to talk about the journey that led up to mindfulness. So tell us a little bit about your experience while at Howard. Maybe how did you get to this point of even going to divinity school? So we can start at Howard. Tell me about Howard.
Yeah. So I originally came to DC to attend Howard in 2006 as a music major.
Okay.
I played trumpet and I was really interested in jazz. And at that point in my life, the vision that I kind of had for myself was actually becoming a professional jazz trumpet player. I also played piano.
Yes.
I played the trumpet and piano in church on Sundays. So from 2006 to 2010, most of my energy was really directed towards becoming a professional musician. And then towards the end of my undergraduate career at Howard, I began to kind of discern like a calling into ministry.
Yeah.
And I was already heavily involved in church, directing choirs, playing the piano, working with youth groups in churches. So I decided to attend Howard University School of Divinity, and then that took me to grad school. Yeah.
So did you grow up in the church? What was your
Yeah.
experience? So you grew up in the church, born and raised?
Yeah, I grew up in the Black Baptist Church in Richmond, Virginia. I grew up playing the trumpet in church and playing piano in church. My mom was in the choir at church. One of my older brothers played the trumpet in church as well before me. So I was always in and out of church, Wednesdays for maybe choir rehearsal, definitely Saturdays for choir rehearsal, Sundays for church service and things like that.
That's really, really good. So I know a lot of times when people go to college, they kind of, distance themselves from that spiritual upbringing. So how was that when you were, developing your new identity while at Howard? Did you still hold true to all of that? Were you still involved, or did you kind of?
Yeah, for me, I was still. I mean, church was kind of like an intimate part of my life because I was still playing music in churches. So I had to do choir rehearsals still. I had meetings in churches, and now of course I was playing at churches on Sundays. So that kind of kept me grounded in the church as an undergrad student. So I would say that I was probably in church more in undergrad than I was when I was actually growing up because I had more responsibilities.
Yeah.
And I was older. Yeah, things like that. Yeah.
That's really good. That's really good. So you're still involved in church, and you are a wonderful musician, might I add. I've heard him play, y'all. He's good, okay?
Thank you.
So you're playing in churches, and then you get to this call to ministry, and you go to Howard Divinity. You get your master's there. How was that experience while at Howard? Was there this wrestle to the ministry? Was there a wrestle with the call? Or did you just say, okay, this is what I'm doing?
I don't think it was a huge wrestle for me.
Okay.
Because I had an older brother who was a minister and a preacher, so I really looked up to him. And I had some local mentors, pastors, who kind of took me under their wing. So for me, it wasn't until maybe the beginning of my third year at Divinity School when I would say the wrestle began there, because I began to have a different mind, a viewpoint and perspective on what it meant to be a religious person or a spiritual person. That began to shift for me. So then that's when the wrestle began, because it began to conflict with my upbringing and what I'd learned up to that point.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah.
let's go a little deeper. So you began to wrestle, and I'm guessing that's when the mindfulness exposure began. So what circles were you a part of? You know, what spaces were you entering that brought this awareness for you?
I wasn't in too many spaces.
Okay.
I really began to do a lot of reading.
Okay.
And I had it was one professor at Howard that really challenged me to explore faith for myself. And when that began to happen, and I had some mentors outside of divinity school as well, who began to help me to inquire into what was true for Rashid and what that looked like.
That's good.
So when that began to happen, that's when the wrestle began to say, wait, so this is what I've been taught, and this is what I'm beginning to feel in my heart,
Wow.
and what I'm beginning to learn about myself. So now, what do I do with both of those?
That's good. So what did you begin to do? Because I know that you know, I went to seminary, you went to divinity school. I know there's this push into the pulpit. So when someone answers their call, you know, people are just pushed into the pulpit, pushed to preach. How did you begin to embrace the originality of your specific call?
So I stepped out of the church,
You stepped out.
and it was for about 4 or 5 years, that I didn't do any ministry work. And that time allowed me to really begin to know myself, to really develop a relationship with myself, both the pain, the suffering, and the beauty that was within myself. And before that, I really didn't have any tools or strategies to help me to reconnect with the good within me. I knew a lot about what was wrong with me, like the sin in me,
Yeah.
but I didn't know about the beauty. So mindfulness gave me some resources to actually begin to touch that goodness again.
That's good. So you took a leap of faith, and you know, for you to grow up in a church and to be involved all this time, and then to step away for 4 years, I know that it had to take some strength. So for that person that is trying to understand their own walk, you know, and they may not attend service every Sunday, or they may, you know, go into different spaces, how do you encourage that person that's wanting to do things a little differently?
I encourage people to find a mentor. Like, I always have mentors, several mentors in my life, that are really there to support me in my own journey of discovering my truth. You know, and I think it's important to have mentors who have had some experience with being raised one way, or being conditioned to do something in one particular format, and then stepping outside of that format and learning how to rediscover themselves away from the social context or religious context that they were brought up in. Really having somebody who has that understanding, because they'll be able to develop a certain degree of empathy and compassion that I think somebody else who's never made that journey
That's
will
good.
be able to do. Yeah.
That's good.
Always have mentors and elders around.
Wow.
Yeah.
So was it that mentor that brought you into that first space? So the one thing I love about your ministry and the work that you do, if you call it ministry, but I see it as ministry because it's transforming communities over, you know, in DC and Maryland. Was it a mentor that brought you to that first space, that first yoga class, or that first mindfulness circle? Like, how did you end up there?
Yeah. So I went on 2 mission trips right after divinity school.
Okay.
So like when I finished divinity school in 2014, 3 weeks before graduation, I kind of turned in my formal ministry roles at the church that I was working at.
Okay.
And then I got an opportunity to go to spend some time in the Philippines and do some mission work. So that gave me some space away. And then I got an opportunity after that to go to spend time in South Korea, which gave me more space away. And within that time away, I was able to really begin to do a lot of reading and study, do a lot of crying and feeling lonely, you know. Also doing a lot of reaching out to people who I felt like could just really connect with me where I was on the journey. And it was really during that time, especially in South Korea, where I was able to actually go to Buddhist temples and practice meditation. And even though I was working with the church while I was there, having direct contact with people who practice mindfulness as a part of their everyday life experience really helped me to taste it from the perspective of somebody who was embodying it, right? And the interesting thing that happened was when I encountered those Buddhist practitioners, I felt like I connected with Jesus in a way that I hadn't connected before prior to that.
Wow. So I think that you are debunking a huge myth, right? So a lot of people feel that if you do meditation or if you practice yoga, you have to be of a certain faith. But here I hear someone of the Buddhist faith, and you were, Christian. They came together and united. So is meditation only for specific people with specific beliefs, or can anybody do it in all walks of life?
Yeah, the reason that meditation really spoke to me was because you don't have to have a belief system to practice it. It's really about developing a relationship with your own self, with yourself. Really about learning how to be more receptive and non-judgmental towards your own mind and your life and your body and your emotions, and learning how to be with things as they are. So it's at no point in meditation or mindfulness practices do you have to set aside former beliefs in order to begin to develop a relationship with yourself.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is good.
Yeah.
That is good. So there's this inner connection with self to slow down. So recall the first time you had this mindfulness, this mindfulness experience. Express in words, if possible. What was that feeling when you first connected with self? You slowed down. You got away from the busyness of the world. We're always going. We're always doing. What did that do to you to slow down and just be?
So that happened in a Buddhist temple in South Korea. I guess the closest thing that I could say is like, I've arrived home.
Wow.
Like, I wasn't sure like about all of the rituals, the dogma, the belief system. I had no idea about any of that. But when I sat down and the monks taught me how to be with my breath and to be with the present moment and to let go of control and to trust, it was kind of an experience of, this is what I've been looking for my whole life.
Wow. So you went there perhaps on one mission to serve and to give back, but you've developed this purpose and this other calling. Yeah,
because simultaneously, like there was this something inside, it was this stirring inside that was calling me. There was like this longing for this peace that I knew was there, that I had tasted, that I had experiences of, a glimpse of from moment in another moment in my life. But I really didn't have I didn't have the resources at hand to call upon this energy that will allow me to connect with it.
Okay.
And not only connect with it, but know that it was who I was.
Yeah.
You know, not just like, oh, you get peace sometimes, but really to connect with a part of my being that was peace.
That's good. So tell us specifically about how this experience in South Korea really sparked the
Yeah.
the fuel towards what you do now? Like, how did
Yeah.
you have this one encounter that is the, the foundation of your business and your nonprofit now?
Yeah. So I would say what really sparked, what really came out of that experience in South Korea was a sense of, wait, everything that I've been looking for regarding my own sense of divinity, I didn't find it outside of myself. I found it within myself.
Within.
So it calls me to create a complete, U-turn, because everything that I had been taught up to that point was to look outside to find completion, whether it was within God or Jesus, or there was this separation. And what meditation did for me was it helped to bridge that gap, not to erase the experience or to begin to bash people who have specific religious traditions or beliefs, none of that, but to really begin to say, wow, I'm the embodiment of this. And there are some tools that I can use, some practices that have a rich history that can help me to cultivate an awareness of the existing goodness within me.
That's good.
It doesn't mean that I always have peace, but there's this underlying foundation that who I am is built on wholeness.
That's great.
Yeah.
And what I love about your story is mindfulness and discovering who you are is for all races, all genders, all religious beliefs. And so this is a practice that can go across the board because of this diverse,
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, because it's like I tell people that befriending yourself, befriending your mind,
like that.
befriending your heart isn't Buddhist. It's not Christian. It's not Hindu. It's not, atheist. Like, our capacity to develop a loving awareness towards ourselves in all situations is a capacity that's innate to all human beings. It's not owned by any particular culture or tradition.
That's good.
But when we begin to say it is, then that's when we begin to have wars and we have fights.
Right.
And then we have people splitting away because of religious beliefs or one religion thinking that they have it and the other people don't.
That's
right?
good. That's good. So you pull 4 years away from the church. You go and you do mission work. You find this amazing practice of mindfulness, and you come back to the States. What begins to cultivate once you get back?
Then I went on a meditation retreat.
A meditation retreat.
Yeah, that was actually for graduates of Howard School of Divinity and Howard Law School.
Okay.
And it was a week-long mindfulness retreat. And the retreat was led by a meditation teacher named Galen Ferguson. And on this retreat, he gave me instructions. He actually took me a little deeper into what I experienced in South Korea.
Okay.
And I was able to ask questions. I was able to be in community with other people who were also on this path of self-realization and self-discovery. And the thing that really stuck with me from that retreat was one of his instructions were to just sit and don't do anything, just be as you are.
Wow.
For a few moments. And for me, that's when everything was like, this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life.
Wow.
Because my whole life before that was about perfecting myself and undoing sin and getting rid of like the devil in me. And his instructions were to sit and learn to develop a loving relationship with however you are showing up in this moment.
That's good.
Yeah, so it was more of a practice of surrender and more of a practice of this deep acceptance of Rashid. And from that's when I began to see myself differently. I began to see myself through the lens of wholeness and goodness that I'd never had before.
Wow. And what you're allowing me to realize is that holistic wellness starts with yourself. It starts internally. And so you have this motto, just be and breathe. And as you were talking about that mentor that went deeper for you, what does just be and breathe mean to you? Because we're stressed. We live in a go, go, go society. Everything is fast paced. But how does one just be and breathe?
Yeah.
What does that practice look like?
Yeah. It really looks like this attitude of receptivity to each moment as it unfolds, and learning to become sensitive to the different ways in which we attempt to control and we attempt to suppress. And when we develop this energy of awareness, this mindfulness, it helps us to recognize that, and we're able to cope and to resource and to love on ourselves in the way that works for us in the moment. So when I think of just be and breathe, it's more so about saying, this is what the moment is.
Yeah.
Don't try to control it. Don't try to fix it. Learn to develop a loving relationship with it.
So how long did it take for you to get to this place? Because every time I'm around you, I'm just so peaceful, right? I have on my clothes because I said, I want to embody Rashid right now.
Yeah.
But it's a process. So how long did it take for you to get to this point? Did you have to go to classes weekly?
Oh,
Did
yeah.
you read a lot of books? Was it your training? How does a person that says, that sounds good, but it's not applicable to my life, I'm just too busy. How do we tangibly achieve this state of mindfulness?
So it's not a state.
It's not a state.
It's not a
Tell me,
state.
break it down.
So mindfulness is awareness.
Awareness, okay.
And we all have this quality. It's innate to what it means to be human, to be aware. And one way that we can help to cultivate this recognition of our ability to be aware is to connect with our breathing, to connect with the breath. You know, like a lot of traditions, the breath is also related to spirit, right? So the breath is always in the present moment. And one aspect of mindfulness is really not giving our energy to the future too much, and not giving our energy to what happened in the past. It's an easy way to get caught up in anxiety and also guilt, right? So when we can connect to the feeling of the body breathing in and actually feel that, and actually feel the body breathe out, we can connect to the present moment. We can connect to a sense of stillness, a sense of calmness, a sense of ease.
Yeah.
And that's simply what it is. But we have to develop a routine, a new pattern that helps us to do that more regularly. So going on, you know, for me personally, I had the privilege of going on a lot of meditation retreats.
Okay.
I also had the privilege of doing a lot of meditation trainings and having mentors. But we don't have to go on meditation retreats to connect with our breath, because the breath is always with us. It's really about the practice of stopping and feeling, right? Not stopping and controlling or attempting to fix, but stopping and feeling and breathing and doing it over and over again. Yeah.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
So that is something that I think is tangible. So for that person in the car, the person that's in that boardroom meeting and they're really feeling their stress levels and anxiety rising, what is something else that people can do in the moment? Because the world is constantly going and our minds are constantly going. So how do we create sacred spaces right where we are? So I hear breathing is one thing that you can suggest to my risers.
Yeah, and also one thing that's really helpful is like connecting with your body.
Okay.
So really maybe just feeling your feet touching the ground. Like we can do that now, and it grounds your attention, right? You can feel your hips in the chair. And what happens is mindfulness practices really help to move your attention away from the mind, from thinking, because thinking is where stress builds up.
Yeah.
Right? And the mind takes us in circles and circles. And it's like we think the same thoughts every day, all day, every day. Mindfulness helps us to pause, to disconnect a little bit, not disassociate, not ignore or push away, but to gain some relief from the excessive thinking.
Yeah.
And actually connect to what's happening in the moment. So when we connect to our breath, our attention is coming away from thought and into the present moment in the body. And if we connect to the feeling of our bodies sitting in the chair, we're moving our attention away from thinking and more to a direct experience of this moment. And in this moment, it's more likely that we'll find a sense of peace.
Wow.
You know?
That's good. And then even as you're talking, I just kind of just felt very peaceful. So for that person that says like, but my bills are due and I have work to do and I have this and I have that, what I'm hearing you saying is mindfulness is a choice. You have to be able to say, this is what I'm going to do in this present moment, and then just do it.
Yeah. It's like all you need is 3 breaths.
3 breaths. Ooh.
If you can make time for 3 breaths,
Okay.
then we can begin to create a new practice. Like if you can take time to pause, even if you're standing. If you're standing in line, if you're on the bus, if you're waiting for the metro, if you're in your car at a stoplight.
So anywhere? I can take this anywhere.
Yeah.
Wow.
It doesn't have to
powerful.
look a certain way.
That's powerful.
Right? It's not about sitting with your legs crossed. It's not about, wearing a certain outfit or anything. Those things are cool for people who enjoy doing them. But mindfulness is really about this curiosity and this relationship with this moment as it is.
That's good.
And the breath and the body is just a way to connect to this moment, right? So it's less of a struggle. The body is here. It can be a resource, And also, a resource is anything that helps to awaken the mind to love.
Yeah.
So if it's a parent, a memory of a parent, or a memory of a sibling, or a memory of a friend, a memory of an author, a quote, a prayer, a chant, an ancestor, a religious figure. If you can bring those people to your mind, it usually helps to create some space around the turbulence in the mind and helps us to connect with a little more calm. And then what that calm does, the stopping and breathing, it brings clarity so that you can take action to whatever. You continue doing your everyday life, but it's like stop, gain clarity, connect, and act.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. So you're not only a person that talks the talk, you walk the walk.
Yeah.
So I've had the privilege and honor of attending some of your classes.
Yeah.
Heart Refuge.
Yeah,
so
Heart
tell us a
Refuge.
little bit about how did you begin to birth Heart Refuge? Where was the thought? Because you partnered with Aisha Ali, correct?
Yeah.
Yes. So tell me, what is your ultimate goal with birthing the Heart Refuge, and how can we connect to that movement?
Yeah. So Aisha Ali and I, we kind of began to have conversations around needing a space for Black, Indigenous, people of color
Okay.
to practice these mindfulness and contemplative practices together in a way that didn't require us to conform to any standard, right? And we really wanted to have a space where, the Black, Indigenous experience was where we drew where we used the practice in. So we wanted people who had similar experiences in America or coming from abroad but now living in America as a Black or brown person.
Right.
To actually be able to find refuge in community, but also learn how to find refuge in the world by learning how to connect to this presence of awareness, this presence of peace within themselves. So we really use the I would say we really use the stickiness and the pain and suffering of our experience as a way for us to connect to our humanity and to connect with other people in the room. And we practice working and staying committed to not suppressing and not turning away from the pain, but also what comes from that that commitment is also this sense of joy, and this sense of peace begins to emerge because we're actually allowing parts of ourselves that were hidden or maybe put away to actually emerge. And when that begins to happen, there's usually a sense of freedom that begins to come apart. So we kind of integrate all of it. We integrate ancestors, we integrate our suffering, we integrate body-based practices, learning how to develop a relationship with the body in a way that helps us to be free and liberated.
Wonderful. And what I love about the Heart Refuge is that, you know, I've been in many spaces that does the mindfulness, but this was a place for people of color. And to see people of color and to see how you're impacting, you know, our people is absolutely amazing, because I didn't grow up with, you know, black people of my race doing yoga, okay, and doing meditation. And so you're breaking down those barriers that is not just for a specific race or even age, because you're even doing it in the schools.
Exactly.
So how is your experience with the little ones shifting their mindset?
Yeah, I mean, it's awesome because they get it, because that sense of okayness and goodness is closer to them still at that young age. They haven't been conditioned by society to conform, to be a certain way, as much as we have. They haven't gone through as much academic schooling or exposure that says this is how you're supposed to think. You know, so there's this childlikeness there, and this I would say this openness,
This innocence,
and this innocence that's there, that allows them to say, okay, I can see the importance of developing a relationship with it myself. I can see the importance of learning how to be in relationship with my classmate. And for some students, it's harder than others, of course. But for the most part, they really catch on really well, because for them, they're looking for ways to cope. And what mindfulness does, it provides them with a way to cope that isn't rooted in suppression or covering something over. You know? That's good. And what happens is it kind of returns a sense of self-agency back to people. And that's what I love about mindfulness. It's like no, like this awareness, this presence is within you.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah, and I see this practice as something that's shifting the world, right? So we live in this stress-filled world, and it's me, but it allows you to slow down, to be mindful of self, and then to be mindful of environment. So for people who want to rise with you, how can they find your Heart Refuge? You know, what day, what time, how can they stay connected?
Yeah, so Heart Rep, so we have 2 social media pages.
Okay.
You can find us on Instagram at Heart Refuge DC. Also on Facebook, Heart Refuge Mindfulness Community. We have a page as well. We also meet on U Street at 1200 U Street, Northwest Washington, D.C. Every first and third Thursday.
First and third. Y'all hear that? First and third Thursday. Okay.
Yeah.
What time?
From 6:45 to 8:45.
Okay.
Yeah, and you can always email me at heartrefugedc@gmail.com. And yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, I'm so very glad that you decided to rise with us as you talk about the importance of mental wellness, mindfulness, and then just embracing the creativity and originality of your call. So I like to end every interview with a rise moment.
Okay.
So for that person that, you know, is afraid to step out and do something different, that person that says, okay, you know, I don't want to originate, I want to duplicate. How can you allow them to rise in owning who they are unapologetically? So, what is that one thing that you want to leave them with to just own all of who they are and to just be okay with that?
Like, we need everybody, and everybody brings something unique. And there's somebody in the world who's waiting for you to be you.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's good. Okay, so for that riser that is wanting to practice mindfulness at their cubicle, in the car, can you just walk me through a simple breathing technique that we can do anytime, any place, anywhere?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, so you would first begin by just sitting comfortably as you are. Just allow the body to relax. You can keep your eyes open or you can close them if you'd like. And just begin to just allow your attention to move towards the feeling of your feet touching the earth. And then allowing your attention to move towards the feeling of your body in your seat. So feeling your hips. And then just noticing that the body is breathing in. And just notice that the body is naturally breathing out. And one thing that helps to connect with the body breathing is to actually focus on the feeling of maybe the stomach rising and the stomach falling. So not taking deep breaths or trying to control your breathing, but kind of allowing the stomach to relax and to kind of join the experience of breathing in and out. And you can say to yourself, breathing in, I'm aware that I'm breathing in. Breathing out, I relax my body. And that's it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. So this is something that I hope that you all join me in doing, and you can do it anytime, any place. Thank you so much again for rising with me today.
Yeah. Thank you.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Great.